am more than breast cancer.
I am more than gastric cancer.
I am more than Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 3.
I am more than Lynch syndrome.
I am more than metastatic male breast cancer.
I'm more than PMDD.
I am more than diabetes.
I am more than lupus.
I am more than FAP.
Welcome to More Than a Diagnosis. I'm Den.
And I'm Jess. This podcast is about so much more than cancer, chronic illness, or the labels we've been given. It's about reclaiming our lives, finding community, and thriving in ways we never thought possible.
Whether you're a patient, a caregiver, or just someone curious about what it means to live beyond a diagnosis, we're so glad you're here.
Have you ever had one of those gut feelings about something? Like you just knew what to do, but then you second guessed yourself. Maybe you thought, am I overreacting? Is this just anxiety? Or is this actually my intuition?
Yeah, if you've been through trauma, illness, or even just years of people dismissing your experiences, learning to really trust yourself can feel impossible. And of course, let's be real. When the world tells you that your body's lying to you, it's really hard to know what's real.
Ugh, that's so true. So today we're going to be diving into the difference between anxiety and intuition and how trauma and illness really can mess with our ability to trust ourselves. And most importantly, how we have worked on rebuilding that trust in ourselves after our major diagnoses.
Because at the end of the day, no one really knows your body, your mind, or what's the truth better than you.
Yep.
You just have to learn to hear yourself again. Let's get into it. So let's talk about how trauma affects decision making. And if we start by talking about our nervous system, specifically our brain's fight or flight response, it will definitely shed light on why it's so difficult to listen to our intuition.
Yeah.
The fight or flight response basically is to help protect us.
Yeah.
Our nervous system's primary job is to keep us safe, keep us alive. And we are used to scanning our environment looking for danger.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't that come from back in like days before all this technology and stuff? I don't really know how to say that, but like the caveman days, right? Where that was like innate in us, right?
Absolutely.
That fight or flight.
That's how they survived. And so now we no longer need that fight or flight. But it's part of who we are. It's part of our amygdala doing what it does and protecting us by triggering that reaction from us and scanning our environment, looking for danger. You know?
Yeah, because we still use that fight or flight response in times of stress, right? But it's not going to be in the same way that maybe it was if we were back in caveman days.
Absolutely. No, it's so true. And a lot of times when that fight or flight response is activated, it's gonna feel like that internal compass is broken.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's because of that response, that trigger. It's basically been hijacked. I don't know if you've ever heard that term.
Yeah.
Where your nervous system has been hijacked and now you're in this constant state of arousal and hypervigilance.
And does that happen because of trauma generally?
A lot of times.
Yeah.
It's people who have gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of illness, and for long extended periods of time. The longer you're stuck in that fight or flight mode, the harder it is to realize or perceive there isn't danger.
Yeah.
Because your body's in this constant mode of, I need to protect myself. All of this is bad.
Sure. That totally makes sense.
You know, and so when the intuition comes, then it's really hard to actually listen because you're just so wired already and your mind is not saying, let's take a deep breath. Let's take some time to listen to ourselves. Is this, you know, a symptom of something bad? Or no.
Yeah, because your body's kind of stuck in that fight mode, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That
And
makes
that's
a lot of
why
sense.
past experiences they really shape us.
Yeah.
And in the cancer and chronic illness community, we will see how doctors, healthcare professionals gaslight people.
Oh, all the time.
And you, I'm sure, have experienced that as well, right?
All the time. I mean, that's what I love about social media, is because there's been so many times from the point of my diagnosis to now dealing with chronic illness where I've questioned myself and been like, am I really? I think this is a symptom of this medication, or I think this is a symptom of this thing happening to me. And the doctors are like, I don't know about that. And then I run to TikTok, I make a video about it, and people who are in the exact same treatment will be like, oh yeah, me too. Like, I've had the exact same symptom. And I'm like, okay, I'm not making it up. And
so validating.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know, and it's happened a lot with specifically Keytruda.
Oh, totally.
You know, a lot of the side effects have been downplayed by professionals, I think.
Yes.
And we have seen so many people come out and say, me too. Or how about this symptom?
Yeah. And so many people can relate. And it's like, no, I really do think that it is this medication that is causing these problems. And so it feels validating, and it's hard to not get stuck in that place of like gaslighting yourself, because you've been gaslit by a medical professional, you know, to say that, no, I don't think that that's really what it is.
It's so true. And then you also have to look at the external factors. Other people, such as friends or family members, who may say, I really don't think it could be anything serious. No, I think you're fine. Don't worry about it. You're just stressed.
You look so good.
Like,
I'm sure you're
really
fine.
Be in so much pain.
Yeah.
You know, like, nah, don't even bother going to see your doctor. You've already, you know, bombarded him with so many other symptoms.
Right.
This is probably nothing.
Right. Or being like, maybe you just need to exercise. You just need to drink more water.
Wait, this is my favorite one, though. I think it's all in your head.
That is sure.
I find it so triggering.
Very much so.
It's all in my head.
Yep.
No,
because then when you are
actually
feeling those things, you're feeling these symptoms that you know are happening to you, you feel it in your body. And then for somebody to say it's all in your head, then you start questioning yourself, because you're like, well, am I feeling this? Or am I just being anxious? And I think that it's important to recognize the difference between anxiety versus intuition, because anxiety feels very urgent. It's noisy. It's very fear-based, right? We're scared. Whereas intuition is something that is more persistent. It's something that doesn't go away. It's something that's eating at you all the time, and not in the way that anxiety does, right? It's calmer. I know that this sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's like a very deep knowing. You know, I think about when I was going through the standalone Keytruda, and I was having all of these physical symptoms that were, I knew that something was wrong. I knew that what I was feeling in my body was happening, but we couldn't pinpoint what it was. And I kept just having this deep knowing that something wasn't right. And we talked about it so much. We talked about how I was anxious about saying, I don't know if I should be on this treatment anymore, but then also having this intuitive feeling of, I know what's happening in my body. It's a very hard place to be in, especially when you've been in a place where you've been gaslit before medically, and you haven't gotten answers. I feel like it's an easy place to get stuck between that anxiety and intuition. And I think that it's important to learn how to rebuild our trust in ourselves. And when we recognize why we don't trust ourselves and why we are confused as whether it's anxiety or if it's intuition, and I think the first part of being able to learn to rebuild that self-trust is like practicing self-compassion and like learning to forgive yourself for any kind of quote unquote wrong decisions that you've made in the past.
And even going back to self-trust, after you have been gaslit for so long, or you've been living in this constant fight or flight mode, it's hard to trust yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to accept that you can trust yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
After so long and, you know, so much of this believing that nothing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when something is actually wrong, it's really hard to trust that. And, you know, it's not going to be perfect.
No.
It's really not. And I feel like we really do need to make a point to focus on that, because we're not saying you're going to get it right all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, specifically because anxiety can basically convince you that something bad is about to happen. And your body, especially if it feels that way, your body's going to act like it's already happened.
Yeah,
and these feelings
that's such a
are
good point.
Extremely intense.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, the best way for me to describe it is a war between my brain and my body.
Yeah.
My brain may say, I think you're in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And then the body's like, we are in danger, and start, you know. But eventually, the brain is going to come to a realization maybe that it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But the anxiety is already built up in our body, and our body's already reacting.
Yeah.
So those two,
they kind of feed off of each other.
Yes, definitely. You know, so it's this war. So is this real or is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Should my body respond or should it not?
Yeah.
Like, is this a red flag? Is this a maybe gut feeling?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to decipher the two.
It really is.
But I think that, back to the self-trust, I feel if we take a moment to take a deep breath and really ask ourselves, is this coming from a place of fear?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this something that my gut is telling me to act upon? But I think that's definitely part of it. We need to just slow down.
Yeah.
Take a minute. Because a lot of times, if we just burst out the first thing that comes to mind and make a rash decision based on that, without taking the time to actually breathe and really process all of that, then we may make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
But taking a moment to pause, breathe, and just reflect on where this is coming from, I think definitely does make a difference.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that 10-minute, 10-hour, 10-day rule for assessing decisions?
I have, but I need a refresher.
Okay. So, for example, let's say you need to make a really important decision. Should I take this job or not? You say, 10 minutes. How will I feel about that decision? Right? So that's, you know, like the short term. In 10 minutes, how am I going to feel after saying yes?
Yeah.
Or how am I going to feel after saying no? Then you go a little bit longer. You extend the interval. And then you ask yourself, what about in 10 hours after I've slept on it? Will I feel the same way come morning about my decision? Then let's take it all the way and ask yourself, in 10 days, how will I feel about the decision I made?
Yeah.
And I feel like taking that 10 rule will force you to really think long and hard about how this decision will impact your life.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. I think that that's such a practical step in trying to hone in that critical thinking and being able to make decisions. And I also think that another practical thing that you can do when you're trying to learn to trust yourself again and learn to feel the difference between intuition and anxiety is by journaling or doing voice notes when things that you have had intuition about actually come true. And when you are able to say, okay, this time I was anxious about this and that didn't actually happen. And then being like, okay, well, I had an intuition that this is what was going to happen. And then it actually happened. And being able to like recall those moments, I think will make using that 10 rule, 10, 10, 10 rule be more applicable, right? Because then you can recall the times that you have trusted your gut and trusted your intuition and made the right choices versus just making choices or living in that state of anxiety. And it's hard. It's a process to learn to trust yourself again. Because if you've lived for a long time of not trusting yourself and of being in a space of living in that anxiety, it's really challenging.
It really is. And I feel that it's so important for us to be aware of how our body is perceiving the information we're receiving.
Yeah.
And I talked about how the brain will act one way, the body reacts.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go back to the difference between how the body feels when it's anxious versus when it's being intuitive.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling panicky, in my case, my chest will get really tight. My heart will race. I will start sweating. And I feel like doom is ready to just burst.
Yeah, that's your body going into the flight mode, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And so when the body is trying to be intuitive, it's not going to feel like that. It will feel the opposite. It will be more of a calmer vibe.
Yes.
More of like a tap.
Yeah.
Not so abrupt, not so obvious.
Yeah, it's like anxiety is screaming at you. Literally screaming in your face, and whereas intuition is almost like a whisper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like the more that you work on recognizing the difference between anxiety and intuition, that whisper gets louder? Yeah.
I feel like maybe a few months ago, I made a post about this too. I was going on a walk. And all of a sudden my chest felt really heavy. My heart was racing. And I started pacing faster. And I took a moment to ask myself, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I felt fear. I didn't know fear of what, but I had to stop and ask myself, what's going on?
Yeah.
The moment I asked myself what's going on, I felt that fear creep up to the surface.
Yeah.
And then I said, it's fear. And then it's almost as if I gave my body permission to relax.
Yeah.
Because I had identified that fear and how my body was reacting. You know, it was my body fearing going back to work. That's the anxiety. And so I took a moment, addressed it, and said, okay, it's you going back to work. This is normal anxiety.
Yeah.
But I was able to notice what I felt and then address it.
So interesting because it's not even like that happened to you when you were on a walk. It's not even like you were at work. It's not like you were going into an interview. It's not like you were going into a test. It's these things that can happen to us, these triggers, right? That can happen to us at any time. But the power of being able to stop and say, what am I feeling?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling this way?
Yep.
And you're literally in the moment identifying that it's anxiety.
Yeah. And then once I recognized it was anxiety, that's when the self-compassion comes into play. Because then what I said to myself was, of course you're going to be anxious. You've been out of work for so long.
Yeah.
It's completely understandable for you to fear and be so anxious about returning.
Yeah.
And that self-compassion goes so far.
Absolutely.
And makes such an impact in neutralizing that adrenaline.
Yes, that's such an important word for sure. I think another thing that this brings up for me in you talking about fear and feeling fear in that moment is when you're having anxiety, there's a lot of fear attached to that, right? So when we're trying to tell the difference between anxiety and intuition or, you know, how to navigate through that, I feel like a question that we can ask ourselves is, if I wasn't afraid, what would I do? If I wasn't feeling fear, then what would I do? Because I think that is oftentimes anxiety is so attached to fear for so many different reasons, depending on what your where your anxieties and where your trauma stems from. For folks who've been diagnosed with cancer, there's a lot of fear when it comes to reoccurrence. And so I think it's just stopping to ask, if I wasn't afraid, then what would I do? And if your fear is what's stopping you, then oftentimes I feel like that's got to be stemmed from anxiety then. And it's not your body telling you this is not okay. It's not necessarily intuition. That could be more anxiety driven, I think.
I absolutely agree. And I feel that folks with major diagnoses such as cancer or any type of chronic illness, I feel like there are questions that I find myself asking, such as, is this a real symptom that I need to act on?
Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah, I suffer from desmoid tumors, and a lot of times I have pain everywhere.
Yeah.
And it'll be random.
Yeah.
And I have to stop and really check myself. Is this anxiety driving the pain? Because I think it might be a desmoid tumor.
Yeah, and the same goes for cancer too, where folks who are NED or in remission or whatever will have random pains and they'll be like, oh my God, is this a reoccurrence?
Yes.
Same kind of thing.
Right. Or is it the anxiety that's amplifying these small symptoms, or maybe not so small, these really big symptoms?
Yeah.
And
then having to figure out, when do I call? When do I say this is what's happening? Because sometimes it's hard to know.
Yeah. Am I overreacting or underreacting?
Because you obviously don't want to underreact.
No, because we've seen what happens when we underreact. It's hard to decipher between the two.
So are there times where you feel that you have been able to recognize a physical symptom and been able to distinguish between whether it's anxiety or your intuition pushing you to say, hey, I think something's actually wrong? And if that's happened to you, what have you done and how has that turned out?
Oof, this one hits close to home. So I did have a very traumatic experience back in March of 2019. And I developed PTSD.
Yeah.
And, along with PTSD come a flood of symptoms.
Yeah.
And I did start to feel physical symptoms because, anxiety does produce physical symptoms. One of those symptoms was this, not necessarily pain, but it was a heaviness. It was uncomfortable. And I had to decide, is this the PTSD making my body react and feel this way in that particular region? Or is this my body whispering, hey, something's not right?
Yeah.
And I really didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't. And I was not able to get to that place where I could decipher. So I decided to just mention it. Because at that point, I didn't trust myself. I didn't know which of the two it was. So I chose to say something. And I'm really glad that I did. Because a month later, it did turn out to be a desmoid tumor. And by then, the pain was excruciating.
Yeah.
And so even though I was feeling pain, I still didn't know if something was wrong. Because maybe the anxiety has creeped up so high that now it's not just a discomfort, now it's excruciating pain.
Yeah.
But I did get to a point where I was able to take a deep breath and get to a place where I felt as calm as I could be.
Sure.
And I really asked myself, is this you trying to tell me something? Or am I so anxious that I can't hear you, body?
Yeah. And I'm sure at that time after the trauma, your brain was just so loud.
It really was.
With a lot of anxiety.
Extremely anxious. I mean, I wouldn't even want to leave my house because I felt my life was in danger.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I took those moments to really ask myself, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because I started feeling the abdomen. And lo and behold, there was an actual mass.
Yeah.
So the moment I felt that mass, I said, you were talking to me all along.
Yeah.
You know, and this goes back to, we know our bodies better than anyone. anyone.
Yep.
And I'm really glad that my provider listened to me and believed me, because that really did help me believe myself and want to trust myself in the midst of a time where I doubted everything about me.
Yeah. Are there things that you feel like you have done, especially after going through some big T trauma, that have helped you to learn how to trust yourself again? Because I can only imagine that, going through what you've been through, that is a long process of learning how to hear that part of yourself that says, hey, there is something wrong, and also, hey, everything's okay.
Absolutely. There are times where I think I've told you my nervous system got hijacked and I am hyper vigilant. I still to this day will jump that startle response. If I hear a loud noise or if someone just barges through the door. Live with that right now. And that's because of the long-term trauma that I experienced. I really have developed grounding techniques that work for me. I would say that is the best way to calm that anxiety enough for me to be able to hear and listen to what my body's saying. And I'm a work in progress. This doesn't always work. But I've noticed that when I'm able to ground myself even a little bit, it gives me enough of a pause to be able to take that deep breath. And really look at that situation.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's, like I said, it's a work in progress. It doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, definitely.
The internal compass may feel like it's broken, but it's not. It's just really soft.
For sure.
That intuition isn't always really loud. It's there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just need to sometimes ground ourselves enough to be able to listen to that little voice that's trying to get our attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if there's one thing that we would want folks to take away from this episode, it's that your intuition is still there, even if trauma has made you doubt it. Even if your diagnosis has made you feel disconnected from your intuition, trust isn't always about getting it right. It's about giving yourself permission to listen.
And if you're struggling to tell the difference between anxiety and intuition, start small. Take that pause. Check in with your body and ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid, what would I do? Because the more you practice, the stronger your trust will become.
That's so, so true. And we would love to hear from you on times that you have mistaken anxiety for intuition, or on times where you have had those gut feelings and you've been 100% right. We would love to keep this conversation going. You can join us in our support circle on our website, and we would love it if you connect with us on our socials to continue talking about this.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because learning to trust yourself again isn't easy, but you don't have to do it alone. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on More Than a Diagnosis. We hope today's conversation left you feeling seen, heard, and maybe even a little more connected.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need it.
And if you're looking for a place to connect with others who truly get it, join our support circle at morethanadiagnosis.org, where we will continue this conversation. It's free, it's welcoming, and it's built for you.
Because no one should have to navigate this alone.
Until next time,
keep living, keep growing, and remember,
you are more than a diagnosis.